All right, everybody get ready, cause today we're going to be doing a deep dive on something that might feel a little bit like biology class. But trust me, way more fun. We're going to be talking about taxonomy.
Okay.
You know, that system that scientists use to keep track of all the living things?
Right.
Like, how on earth do they keep track of everything from like a tiny bacteria to like a giant whale?
Yeah. Well, it really is like having a giant library of life on Earth, and taxonomy is like that organization system, you know?
Right.
Without it, we would just have no way to like understand how things are related to each other.
Okay, so instead of the Dewey Decimal System,
Uh-huh.
we've got kingdoms and species and all that stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's just like using those categories in a library to find a specific book.
Right.
Taxonomy helps scientists to understand how different organisms are related.
Yeah.
Like, fun fact, did you know that starfish aren't actually fish?
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Starfish aren't fish? Whoa. Okay, I'm already learning things.
Uh-huh.
So who came up with this whole system, though? It sounds like a pretty massive undertaking.
Yeah, well, we have to give thanks to Carl Linnaeus.
Okay.
Super smart guy back in the 18th century. He kind of started this whole thing, developed the system that was based on the physical characteristics of organisms.
Oh, so like he was looking at like the shape of leaves,
Yeah.
number of legs, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Like a detective would use clues to identify a suspect.
Right.
And get this, he decided to give each species a unique two-word name using Latin.
Oh, wow.
Think like Felis catus for your house cat.
Okay.
That's what's called binomial nomenclature.
Okay.
Still the gold standard today.
Latin names, very official.
Right.
Why Latin, though? Couldn't he have just used English?
Well, back then, Latin was kind of the language of all science.
Oh, okay.
It helped scientists all over the world talk about different species
Got it.
without getting confused. And the names weren't just random.
Okay.
They often reflected characteristics like Lynx canadensis and Lynx rufus for the Canadian lynx and the bobcat.
Oh, so the genus Lynx tells us that they're related.
Yeah.
But then the species name gives us a little more specific information.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm starting to get it.
But here's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
That two-word name, it's just the beginning. It's like the tip of the iceberg.
Okay, I'm ready to dive deeper.
It's like a family tree for all living things.
Oh.
It's called the taxonomic hierarchy.
Okay.
We start off with really broad categories like kingdoms, plants, animals, fungi,
Okay.
and then we go more and more specific.
So it's like those Russian nesting dolls?
Mm-hmm.
You open one and there's another one inside.
Yes. Perfect analogy.
Okay, cool.
So there are 7 main levels: kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species.
Wow.
Let's go back to that bobcat.
Okay.
It belongs to the kingdom Animalia
Okay.
because it's an animal.
Makes sense.
Then if we go a level down, we get to the phylum Chordata,
Okay.
and that includes all the animals that have a spinal cord. And then we go down to class Mammalia because bobcats have fur and they nurse their young.
And getting more specific.
Right. Then we go down to order, which is Carnivora.
Uh-huh.
They are meat eaters.
Right.
Family Felidae.
Okay.
Lions, tigers.
All the cool cats.
Exactly. So we're working our way down that family tree,
Uh-huh.
getting closer and closer to our bobcat.
I like it.
So next we get to genus Lynx and species Rufus,
Oh, well.
giving us the full scientific name, Lynx rufus.
Gotcha.
You see how with each step we take down the hierarchy,
Yeah.
the groups get smaller
Right.
and the organisms in them are more similar.
Okay, this is making sense to me now. It's like organizing a massive library,
Mm-hmm.
right? You start with like fiction, nonfiction,
Mm-hmm.
then you get into mystery sci-fi,
Right.
and then you get down to the individual books.
Exactly. And just like a well-organized library, this system helps us to understand the connections between all these different organisms and to see kind of the bigger picture of life on Earth. Yeah. But there's a twist. Sometimes those common names can be super misleading.
Right.
Like we were talking about starfish before.
Yeah.
Not really a fish.
Yeah, it's like when you buy those like look-alike candies
Yeah,
and you think you're getting one flavor and it's totally different.
totally. And common names can be tricky when we're trying to be all scientific and precise.
Yeah.
Like, how many animals do we call cats?
Right.
There are like house cats, wild cats, lions, tigers.
That's a lot of cats.
It is a lot. So if you told me you saw a cat,
Right.
I wouldn't know if you were talking about a little tabby cat
Love
or a
it.
mountain lion.
Yeah, good point.
Exactly. So that's where the binomial nomenclature is so helpful.
Right.
It's like a universal language that makes sure everybody is talking about the same thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. That brings up another question for me, though.
Yeah.
How do scientists decide what makes a species unique? Is it just about how they look, or is there more to it?
That is a great question and something that scientists debate a lot. Linnaeus focused mostly on physical characteristics,
Right.
but now we know that genetics plays a big role.
So like two animals could look alike but have different DNA.
Exactly. And with DNA analysis, we're learning more and more about how species are related, and sometimes we get surprising results.
Interesting.
You know, things that look different might be more closely related than we thought.
Whoa, that's crazy.
It's like those genealogy shows.
Right.
Where they find out that they have a family member they never knew about.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's all about genetics. And this genetic stuff makes taxonomy even more complex.
Okay.
Especially with extinction happening as habitats change and species evolve.
Yeah.
It can be hard to define what is a distinct species.
Okay, I can see that.
Huh.
So how does all of this apply to the real world?
Right.
It's more than just organizing stuff for scientists, right?
Oh, yeah. It's definitely more than that.
What's the big picture?
It's super important for conservation efforts.
Okay.
You know, how can we protect a species if we don't know what it is?
Yeah, that's true.
Or how it's related to other organisms.
It's like trying to put together a puzzle without the picture on the box.
Yeah, exactly. Taxonomy helps us to understand biodiversity,
Okay.
track how populations are changing, and then make good decisions about protecting life on Earth.
Okay, makes sense.
And here's something else.
What's that?
Just naming an organism can affect how we see it.
Oh, yeah. I can see that a good name
Right.
can make something more memorable.
Exactly.
And maybe we'll want to protect it more.
Exactly. Like, would you be more likely to want to protect something called the majestic forest guardian or species X?
Oh, the majestic forest guardian, for sure.
Right.
It just sounds way more important than species X.
Exactly. So that brings us to this interesting question.
Okay.
How does naming an organism actually affect our perception of it?
Right.
And could that affect how we try to protect it?
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Would we be more likely to want to protect something that we feel connected to?
Yeah.
Something with a name that we know?
Yeah.
A story? Yeah, that's a great question. It makes you think about how powerful language is.
Yeah.
And how it can shape how we understand nature.
Definitely. And speaking of understanding nature,
Yeah.
remember that dinner activity we talked about?
Yeah.
Classifying dinner?
Yeah. I'm ready to test out my skills.
Okay, great. So imagine you're having some seafood stew.
Okay.
Lobster, squid mussels, and oysters.
That's delicious.
It does. Now, the challenge is to think about how these creatures would be classified,
Okay.
using that system we were just talking about.
Got it.
So which ones are in the same kingdom,
Right.
same phylum?
Uh-huh.
Which ones are the most closely related?
Okay.
And which one might be the odd one out?
Okay. So they're all animals, right?
Yes.
So they would all be in the kingdom Animalia.
You're on the right track.
Okay.
Now think about some other characteristics.
Okay.
Do they all have backbones?
Hmm?
Are they all soft-bodied?
Okay.
Do they all have shells? These clues will help you figure out how they're classified and how they're related to each other.
Yeah. This is like a real-life mystery now.
Yeah, it is.
I'm looking at my seafood stew a little differently.
I think that's the beauty of taxonomy.
Yeah.
It helps us to appreciate the connections and the diversity in even just our food.
Right. Like a simple bowl of seafood stew.
Exactly. But we're not going to spoil all the fun and give away the answers.
Right.
The learning comes from doing it yourself.
Okay, so I'll keep thinking about my seafood stew relationships.
Mm-hmm.
But thinking bigger picture, we covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah.
Starting with Linnaeus' system,
Uh-huh.
going through the whole hierarchy.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much thought has gone into classifying all life on Earth.
It's true, and it's not over.
Right.
We're still finding new species all the time.
Yeah, that's true.
And our understanding of how things are related is changing, too.
Right.
Taxonomy is always adapting.
So it's like a puzzle that we're always adding new pieces to.
Yeah.
So what would you say is like the biggest takeaway for our listeners?
Mm-hmm.
What do we really want them to remember about taxonomy?
I think it's more than just memorizing names and categories.
Yeah.
It's about understanding how life is all connected
Okay.
and our place in it all.
Right. And appreciating the diversity,
Yeah.
even in something as simple as our dinner.
Exactly. So here's a thought
Right.
for everyone listening.
Yeah.
Next time you see any organism,
Uh-huh.
could be a tiny insect
Right.
or a weed,
Yeah.
really take a minute to look at it.
Okay.
Think about its characteristics. Think about how it would be classified.
Okay.
How does it fit into the whole web of life?
So it's like we can all be nature detectives using taxonomy to learn about the world around us.
And you never know, you might even discover something new.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, or contribute to a citizen science project.
Yeah,
We're all a part of this
that's true.
big exploration of life on Earth.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into taxonomy.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
We hope you learned something new and that you'll keep exploring.